for this block, we are moving on to the last speaker before we have our coffee break, and we will then be swapping into a new session about data spaces. But the last of our speakers that will be talking about using the reference data and semantics is going to be Martin Romacker, who is a senior principal scientist at Data and Analytics Roche's Innovation Centre. Martin will be telling us about driving a successful digital strategy, the 360-degree application of FAIR principles for data harmonization and standardization. Martin, it's quite a mouthful of a title, so I'm sure there's a lot to get through. So let's see if we have you connected and ready to go. We do indeed. Thank you very much. Martin, I'll hand over the floor to you to tell us about driving a successful digital strategy.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So I would like to talk a little bit about the work that we have been doing at Roche, so a large Swiss pharma company, as some of you may know. And this is just a small piece of an overall activity across functions and sites that we have been conducting for the last 5 to 10 years, which heavily builds on semantic technologies and also bringing in reference data and semantics at scale to the organization. So there is a lot of discussions going around about the importance of FAIR, of true FAIR in the context of a digital strategy. And internally and externally, I'm pretty much an advocate of understanding what FAIR really means, how deep this goes into the way how we're working with data.
Martin, I think we've lost you altogether. Martin, can you hear me, or can we hear you even if we've lost your picture? No, I think we may have lost Martin for good. We'll give it another couple of minutes while I give you a slight rundown on what's going to be coming up over the rest of this afternoon. This is day 3, of course, of Indoors 2023. We've had our fair share of technical hiccups, but nothing too drastic. And of course, we've been able to record all our presentations so that you can go back and have a look at them afterwards. Because we're running this 2-track system, of course, it's really important that you can watch what was happening on the other track while you're in track 1. Later on, we will be having a panel discussion after our break. We'll be talking about agreeing on standards and what are the big standards to come. We will then have a discussion about that. We'll be talking to representatives of the European Commission. We will be having Q&A from the audience, as always, and then we'll have conclusions, recommendations, and interaction with the programme committee. I'm told Martin is back, so I think we can go back, Martin, to your presentation. You are still on your first slide, I believe, so we'll take it from the top.
So was there an interruption of the connection, or?
Yes, you froze and disappeared altogether. But
okay, sorry, I didn't notice this.
No,
okay.
It's okay. If you take it from, I think, the first slide again, we should be able to get everything.
Yeah, it's okay. So actually, I'm focusing on a couple of topics and aspects around true FAIR implementation. And as mentioned before, there are these 2 dimensions of being fair. One is the human dimension, where as a scientist, you're able to find access and semantically understand the data without the presence of the data owner. That means that data are fully complete, semantically described, and you have a seamless data experience. More importantly, it is about the machine part, which is also relates to digitization. It is the ability for a machine to automatically find and semantically use the data. In essence, what we are aiming at is machine actionable data. Now, looking into a continuum that I tried to depict here, that starts from unstructured data, goes via semi-structured data and structured data to fair relaxed and fair strict data. In the value that you have with your data assets, FAIR really adds a lot to this. And I would like to go through the various levels of these elements here. So first, I think structured data is pretty straightforward. That means you have free text. I've just taken here an example from our internal repositories about a data contract that we are having. And even though you have elements like headlines or tables, this is not accessible. It is just free text. So, and of course, free text are very, very difficult to cope with. The next level that we can see, which also relates to the way how we organize and structure data, is what I would call semi-structured data. Semi-structured means that you have a structure, but it's not fully spelled out. And I've taken here an example from a repository which is called clinicaltrials.gov. And here on the top, you see structures like arm and interventions or outcome measures that is more precise by primary outcome measures or secondary outcome measures. And this is something that you get in a structure as an XML, but the content that you can see here, what are the primary outcomes and what are the secondary outcomes, this still remains free text. So this is semi-structured because you have some structured, but most of the information is locked into free text. So now going to the next level, which is structured data. So structured data typically comes in terms of schema definitions. I've just taken here an example from a standard which is used in lab automation, which is called Animal, and a standard for analytics, information model language. And just could be any other XSD example here. What we see here is you have a type, which is an animal type that is defined as XML. And then you define sequences like a sample set, experiment step set, audit trail, entry set, and signature set. This is a very, very well organized schema that helps you to understand the standard, but yet so far it is not really fair because the elements don't really convey their semantics in terms of global, unique, persistent, and resolvable identifiers, which makes it more difficult to work with this metadata and data elements which are contained therein. Looking at the next level, and I'm taking here an example which is coming from an internal resource, which is a clinical data sharing environment, and it comes here in terms of a JSON output. This is where you have what we call FAIR relaxed data, and I will relate this soon to the FAIR principles and the FAIR maturity indicators. So what you see here is that you have a normal JSON with key value pairs, and for some of these keys like scientific area, you have a control term like oncology, or you have a study indication which is melanoma, or you have a study status which is active, randomization schema which is randomized, also the phase of the study which is here. This is all standardized and controlled, and this is why we have here a fair relaxed application of the data structure. You have a schema definition and controlled vocabularies, but this is not yet, say, the full FAIR that you may want to achieve. So here at the next level, you see what is FAIR strict. So the schema definition that you are using is ontology driven, and you have a global, unique, persistent, resolvable identifier for data elements and data values. I've taken an example from a pre-competitive collaboration, which is under the umbrella of the Pistoia Alliance, which is a non-for-profit organization to foster collaboration in pharma and life sciences R&D. So there's also a strong trend in our industry to do work in a pre-competitive and a shared way. And we have adopted here a community standard, which is the so-called bioassay ontology. So also, again, following the FAIR principles, use community standards rather than inventing the wheel. We have also seen very, very nice examples of this before. And in this schema, you see that for the metadata elements or the data elements like the bioassay type or the assay format, we have resources, in this case, coming from the bioassay ontology. And also for the values, for example, if you defined the assay mode of action, we have resources like inhibition or activation. So everything is not only coded in the schema itself is ontology driven, and both for the data elements and the data values, we are using resources, we're using global, unique, persistent, resolvable identifier. And this is what I would call FAIR strict. So now looking into this entire hierarchy and taking a glance again at the FAIR principles and the FAIR maturity indicators that you can see here depicted for interoperability. The first maturity indicator around data and metadata is that you use formal, accessible, shared, and broadly applicable languages for knowledge representation. Relaxed is you have any structured information, and strict is that you use ontologies with machine resolvable formats, as you have seen for the bioassay ontology template. The second point here is that for your data and metadata, use vocabulary ontologies which are themselves fair. And fair relaxed means that these vocabulary terms, they are human readable, as you have seen with the fair relaxed, where we have control terms for oncology, for melanoma. And the strict form is that the vocabulary terms are machine readable, which means that we refer to these resources using these globally persistent identifiers. And now looking into the process of digitization. In digitization, it's not sufficient to change the modality from non-digital to digital to have a machine readable artifact, which we can see here from unstructured to fair relaxed data. The most important piece is really to make your data machine actionable. That means that you can directly consume the data and integrate it into your knowledge-driven data management value chains without any further transformation or changes to it. In order to support this process, we have built a reference system, a fully semantic reference system, which is a product line. We call it currently Scientific Interoperability Hub, where we have 3 different products. We have terminology management, we have semantic dataset definitions, where we have the schemata and also the metadata registry, and last but not least, conceptual modeling and ontologies. The products themselves are fair by design. So we apply the principles that we advocate for also to ourselves. So we have a full semantic technology stack with a triple store underneath and fair architecture. And last but not least, also fair APIs using not only JSON, but JSON link data, JSON LD, which is also a JSON dialect that serializes RDF, or that can be serialized as RDF if you read the output. And we support verification at scale for the entire Roche organization. Very importantly, we've also seen this in presentations before, we also ensure the semantic interoperability, doing our due diligence to link to existing community standards and also support high data quality. Our products serve as reference data for the standardized terminologies, the metadata, and the conceptual models, and we semantically link internal and external data assets. So it's not only a focus on the internal ones, but also a lot of the knowledge that we can use is coming from academia, from research institutes, from commercial content providers, also from contract research organizations. And we use this semantically linked data for data acquisition and data integration. We are supporting more than 100 productive applications across all Roche functions and sites, and we ensure the currency and the ongoing support. And this is what you see here on the next slide. This is the stack that we have built with the terminologies, the semantic metadata registry with the dataset model, and the conceptual modeling, the ontologies. And as this is really coming, the reference data is coming out of a single framework. If we verify our data and we aggregate it on the top, we are building a knowledge graph by design. So we built the semantic seeds already in the prospective way where we generate data. What are the offerings that you have to do to support such an undertaking? So first of all, you have to provide services, so providing custom tailored terminologies, data sets, and models. Last but not least, when these resources come into being, you have to have a team behind it to maintain and enhance the standards. So bringing in new requests. These are also data stewards or data curators. You have to look into shared semantics across different different parts of the organizations, our so-called data domains. We also have data domain ownership and data domain stewards. You have to have a high level or good level of technical support to ensure the adoption across the organization. And the fifth point is very close to my heart, is that we are not on a green field. We are a member of a society, and I'm also very happy to see that the European Union is doing a lot here, a lot of say work, which is also spearheading. So the standards, they are not related to Roche or to a specific person. These are community standards. So we participate in data harmonization and data standardization initiatives outside of our organization with other pharma, healthcare, and beyond. Last but not least, we also have a toolbox that support the adoption. And with this, this was my last slide. I'm coming to the conclusions. So a successful and value-generating digital strategy requires truly machine actionable data. Machine readable is not sufficient. And at least in my opinion, the application of the FAIR strict principles is mandatory. the 360-degree application of 360-degree application of fair data principles really tie digitization into semantic technologies, providing the resources around terminologies, schema definition, ontologies, and standardization and harmonization across data domains is based on fair resources, so the fair reference data that I've highlighted. And my personal dream is that we're all working together on an open public-private semantic infrastructure of fair applications, services and data to really provide a fully linked data ecosystems to have more reliable insights in less time and at lower cost. At the end of the day, everything is about semantics. And with this, I'm at my last slide, and I would like to open the floor for questions and thank the organizers to have me here on this event.
Thank you very much indeed, Martin. We do have questions coming in thick and fast for you. The first one is, how do you assess fair maturity level of data assets? Is the assessment of the data assets expressed explicitly?
I think we have two different approaches. So one is that we do assess the maturity, also using the fair maturity indicators and the fair maturity matrix. We either do this manually, so in an assessment project where we look into the various facets of applications, services, and data. The other one, which really also relates to having machine actionable data. So if your data model is fair, if your data is fair, then you can also build your automated fair assessment algorithms that we have, for example, in our internal data catalog, the Roche Dataset portal. Ideally, we would like to move from manual to automated, but this exactly requires this level of machine actionable that I was advocating for.
And what kind of data do you think is suitable for digitalization? Does the heterogeneity of the data pose a problem?
I think currently the heterogeneity of the data poses a problem, but I think this is also because we did a very poor job on aligning and harmonizing and standardization. And I think this is actually the mission statement. I think we really, of course, have different data domains. We have to cope with heterogeneity, but we also want to harmonize this and bring this together using community standards and really work on a conversion. So I think on the one hand, you want to maintain the flexibility and the independence in the various data domains. Think about manufacturing, think about legal, think about commercial, about HR. But at the end of the day, the resources that we put into place should reflect this shared semantics. So we really want to support this process of verification at scale, also giving the 360-degree services around this.
Does Google Search find linked data as well as data in CSVs and PDFs published on websites?
That's a very good question. Actually, I can't tell you, but I would say the Google search is not a semantic search engine, because when you represent your data in a semantic way, you are interested in graphs. So you're presenting, say, knowledge between nodes and you combine them with edges. And I think there are more specialized search tools than Google that would allow you to really explore information and data that is represented in knowledge graph and in a graph-like representation. Of course, Google is constantly working on this, but I would say so far these are more or less different use cases. And I think graph exploration, also, by the way, doing artificial intelligence on graph exploration, where you can do a lot of fantastic work, like, for example, automatically detecting fraud in other industry, or detecting suspect records in your database. This all goes back to graph algorithms, and this is where I wouldn't see Google search so far.
Other options are available, as they say. How are you assessing the data quality of FAIR objects?
That's another topic which is very close to my heart. I think FAIR and data quality are not synonyms, right? You can have data quality frameworks and data quality KPIs. Let's take, for example, currency, if your data are up to date, which do not really play into FAIR. I think when you also look into data quality tools, I think sometimes the semantic dimension is neglected. And we also wrote a paper about this topic, which we call FAIR plus Q. So at the end of the day, you have to have a combination of FAIR approaches and data quality frameworks to really get the value out of your data that you want. So there's a close relationship, it's not the same. And of course, data quality plays into FAIR. Think about reusability. So if you want to reuse your data, they should be complete. They should be semantically described. You should expose your metadata. A very, very interesting combination topic.
And we're going to squeeze one last question in before our coffee break. One audience member is asking, isn't the actionability correlated also with the availability of appropriate services? And are such standardized services available in the architecture?
I think that's a very good point. I would say it's still work in progress. So I think we want to also, for example, build this into various architectural levels, from solution architecture, domain architecture, up to data and information architecture. I think we have the seeds somewhere, but I would say in a typical IT organization, the approaches that we have been taken, also seen in the previous presentations, also the master data was mentioned before. This is all coming into being now. So I think the objective would be to make this combination, to bring it closer to architecture, but it's still a work in progress, and it's a little bit, say, two different communities that really have to find together, and we still have to build the bridges here.
Well, thank you very much, Martin. You've gone a long way to helping us understand it better as well. So thank you for that.